Reborn alongside my best friend, I was astonished to see her wearing the same clothes and mimicking my exact words from the previous life, all in an attempt to steal my former husband. At the engagement party, she donned an exquisite gown, lifted her head proudly, and declared, "Sorry, Sara, but I want this rich life too." Seeing her smug expression, I just offered a hollow laugh. Being rich isn't always a blessing. She clearly didn't realize that the elite circle isn't just about luxury. Without absolute power, forget the glory. You won't even be left with scraps. I smiled, quietly assuring myself that this illusory wealth was something I wouldn't fight her for. I opened my eyes and was stunned to realize I was back in college. Overwhelmed with joy, I rushed to tell my best friend, Joyce. Unexpectedly, she tricked me into the restroom, where she promptly locked the door. She said, "Sara, do you remember what day it is? It's the day you meet Alvin Leon, the first step into high society." My euphoria from rebirth instantly died down. My face was pale. I demanded, "What do you want? Let me out!" But Joyce ignored me. She applied makeup and smiled, saying, "Alvin Leon likes girls who dress simply, with a gentle and compliant personality." I remember it all so clearly. This time, he will definitely fall for me. Hearing her satisfied chuckle, I sank exhaustedly onto the toilet seat and said, "Joyce, you can't do this. Alvin Leon is my husband. You can't steal him." Yet her laughter grew more gleeful. After changing clothes, she added, "Don't worry, he'll be my husband soon. Once I marry into the elite, I won't forget you. I'll still treat you kindly, just like you generously gave to me in the last life." The dorm room door opened and closed. Silence fell. Waiting until she was long gone, I suddenly burst out laughing. A gut-wrenching, tear-streaming laugh. How could I have not seen how incredibly naive the best friend I trusted was in the last life? She didn't know that the money I gave her was all my own savings. I was merely a puppet wife manipulated by Alvin Leon. Every penny in that prestigious family was never truly mine. Joyce only saw the external glamour, unaware it was just a facade I desperately maintained for appearances. The elite world is too deep, the people in it more vicious, and relationships hopelessly complicated. For 10 years after marrying Alvin Leon, not a day went by that I didn't regret it. I turned into a puppet, with no hope even of divorce. And yet, Joyce naively thought I lived an easy, comfortable life. After graduation, she refused to work, constantly asking to borrow money. Having chosen to step into that abyss, I grit my teeth to maintain face. She even asked me to introduce her to Alvin Leon's friends, hoping to follow my path into a wealthy marriage. Thinking of the deceitful faces of Alvin Leon's circle, those who colluded with him in wickedness, I politely turned Joyce down. She, however, assumed I was deliberately hindering her success, which led to a period of coolness between us. Then, shamelessly, she came to borrow money again. I still gave her my last $50,000 in savings. She complained it wasn't enough and caused a scene. In the struggle, we both fell from the second-floor balcony. When I opened my eyes, I found myself on the hard wooden bed of my university dorm. Tears of relief streamed down. The opportunity to escape the inescapable abyss had come. And as for Joyce, she seemed to have been reborn too. But she was just as foolish as before, thinking that mimicking my past self meant she had the upper hand. Joyce wants to meet Alvin Leon. She truly is my good best friend, eager to take the disaster off my hands. If I didn't give her a little help, wouldn't I be letting down her sincere efforts? Just then, my 2 other roommates returned, found me locked in the restroom, and let me out. They thought someone had bullied me, but I just smiled in relief. The air in the restroom was a million times more pleasant than being with Alvin Leon and his bloody elite family. Leaving the bathroom, I started sorting through my memories of the past life. Reborn, I had so many choices to make a difference. I held the shortcuts no one else knew. However, to my surprise, my father suddenly called. He said he urgently needed me to come home, This had never happened in the previous life. Our home was right in the city, about an hour's drive away. When I rushed back, my father was standing next to our neighbor, Aunt Julie, with a serious expression, and said, "Your dad and Aunt Julie are planning to register their marriage." That woman's name was Julie, and she was Joyce's biological mother. Aunt Julie and my mother were originally best friends. When we were young, she often brought Joyce to our house, and over time, Joyce and I became friends. Since my mother died in a car accident a few years ago, Aunt Julie had been caring for me like her own daughter, for which I was always grateful. Yet, seeing them stand together now, I found it incredibly strange. Wife dies, husband marries her best friend. Best friend dies, she marries her best friend's husband. No matter how you look at it, it felt off. While I was still lost in thought, my father continued, "Joyce just called you. She was worried you might ruin her plans. Stay home these next few days. Don't go anywhere." I frowned, confused. Why would she call you? My father immediately snapped. "Joyce is my daughter, now that Aunt Julie and I are married. What's wrong with her calling me?" Seeing how hastily my father defended her, my heart suddenly understood something more. I had never seen Aunt Julie's husband since childhood, only hearing from neighbors that she had been pregnant before marriage. But my father was exceptionally concerned about Aunt Julie and Joyce. In everything, he always favored her over me. He would often lecture me. "Aunt Julie was your mother's best friend. Raising a child alone is hard. We must take good care of them. Joyce doesn't have a father. She's pitiful. You must defer to her." In the last life, I etched those words into my soul. Even after marrying unhappily, I continued to support and help Joyce like a sister. Yet, as soon as she was reborn, she wanted to intrude on my marriage and even called my father, telling him to keep an eye on me so she could successfully steal Alvin Leon. My father, without distinguishing right from wrong, immediately sided with her. In that moment, I began to doubt. Who was his biological daughter? Or were both of us? I calmly agreed to stay home for 2 days, just to find an opportunity to get a strand of my father's hair. Afterward, I returned to school and secretly collected hair from Joyce. Waiting for the DNA test results, I held the confirmation paper in my hand, feeling only mockery. It turned out they really were father and daughter. In the previous life, I wanted to divorce Alvin Leon, but he used my family and friends to threaten me, forcing me to continue being his puppet. My family included my father and Aunt Julie, and my friend was Joyce. Because of them, I buried 10 years of freedom in the Leon family house. Now, remembering it all, it was just a bitter joke. Fortunately, I was reborn. This time, no one could become a burden to tie me down. I sold the house my mother left for me, immediately gaining a large sum of money. I quickly moved to a secluded corner of the city. In the cramped room, no different from a makeshift studio, a young founder of a company that would later become a global top 500 enterprise stared blankly at me, his eyes filled with disbelief. "Miss Sara, do you really want to invest in our company?" I replied, "I see great potential in your company. It will definitely have a brilliant future." No one could imagine that the man who would later become a renowned, influential figure in the business world was now wiping snot and tears in front of me, saying, "Miss Sara, please rest assured, we absolutely won't waste your money." I smiled and replied, "I am naturally at ease. This money won't be lost. It will multiply many times over." After signing the investment contract, I went to a newly launched housing development. The sales office was deserted, with only 2 staff members on duty. When they heard I wanted to buy a house, they were stunned. After confirming I was actually serious about buying in this remote, isolated place, they immediately became cheerful, poured me tea, and enthusiastically showed me around. Within half an hour, I decided to buy 2 units. As I left, the staff members were beaming and escorted me out a long way. Looking at my bank balance, I still had some money left. Should I keep it for emergencies or continue investing? While I was busy thinking about how to manage my capital, Joyce was busy at the hospital, caring for Alvin Leon. She didn't forget to video call me to show off. Alvin says he'll get engaged to me once he recovers. Sara, you don't stand a chance this time. Then, she turned the camera toward the hospital room. Through the glass, I saw Alvin Leon lying in bed, his head wrapped in white bandages. I was surprised. How did he end up like this? Clearly, in the last life, he wasn't injured in the head. Hearing my question, Joyce immediately changed the subject, saying, "Don't mention the last life. He's mine now." Not long after, a classmate accidentally filmed and posted a video online. It was the day Alvin Leon had his car accident. A girl in a white dress nervously approached the smoking, overturned car, trying to pull Alvin Leon out. But perhaps fearing the car would explode, she let go twice midway, causing Alvin Leon's head to hit the ground twice in succession. I burst into laughter. No wonder Alvin Leon's head was completely wrapped in bandages that day. It turned out Joyce had aggravated his injury while rescuing him. In the class group chat, everyone buzzed. Is the girl who saved him Joyce? Why is Joyce playing the hero? Sara, do you know anything about this? Since Joyce was also in the group, I could only pretend to be sympathetic and say I didn't know. Joyce, busy attending to Alvin Leon, had no time to read the news. I turned off my phone and immediately took a taxi to Street A, quickly finding the film crew for the movie, Mark. This was originally a low-budget web movie, but after its release, it became a nationwide sensation. The director and actors all shot to fame. The male and female leads even went on to win Best Actor and Best Actress awards, becoming idols of their generation. After a few days of deliberation, I decided to invest one portion of my money in the stock market and the rest in this film. Although my capital wasn't huge, it was a lifeline for the production team. The young director was extremely grateful, but still worriedly said, "I'm just afraid this film might not even get aired." The film was a historical drama with subtle realism and satirical undertones, making it genuinely difficult to pass censorship. But in the previous life, while attending a business party as the wife of Alvin, I accidentally overheard that a major financial power had recognized the film's commercial value and protected it from start to finish. Coupled with innovative media strategies, this hidden gem had the chance to shine brilliantly. The film's success, besides the talent of the actors and director, was largely due to the push from capital flow. Even the future Best Actor and Best Actress couldn't have done it without the operation of those behind-the-scenes forces. Therefore, Director John's worries were fundamentally unnecessary. I smiled and said, "I'll visit the set often when I have time. If the director doesn't mind, I can offer some audience perspective suggestions." John's expression briefly changed. A strong-willed young director like him typically hated outsiders interfering. But perhaps because I was the investor, he could only reluctantly nod in agreement. In reality, over the next few months, although I occasionally visited the set, I never offered any advice. I used the profits from my stock investments to frequently treat the crew to meals, and soon we were like family. In any case, getting to know these young actors, who would soon be famous, was a good thing for me. Watching them in their youthful stage, I thought about their future spotlight, and a sense of accomplishment surged within me. Meanwhile, Alvin Leon was discharged from the hospital. Although his head was still bandaged, he could move freely. Joyce looped her arm through his, took a picture right in front of the hospital, and sent it to me with the caption, "Sara, Alvin is throwing a birthday party for me. Don't forget to come." She then posted the party address in the class group, inviting all of our classmates. Her intention to show off was too obvious. Our classmates, unaware of the internal details, congratulated her on her boyfriend. At that moment, the future Best Actress was sitting next to me, fanning herself and sighing, "We're almost done filming. I guess I won't see you anymore, my sugar mommy." She was only 2 months younger than me, but every time I heard the woman who would later hold up half the film industry sweetly call me sugar mommy, I felt ecstatic. I put down my phone and half-jokingly said, "We have to part ways indeed. Once this film airs, you all will be the hottest stars. I bet you won't remember this poor investor sister anymore." She pouted and replied, "No way." With the boost from the capital flow, the film successfully passed censorship after wrapping up and was aired during the summer primetime slot. It shot straight to the top of the heat index after just 3 days of screening. A month later, the film broke unprecedented viewership records. As an investor, I immediately pocketed enough money to last a lifetime. Of course, I wouldn't spend it all. I continued to invest the money. Upon receiving the capital I injected, Walter immediately called, surprised. "Miss Sara, did you strike gold?" I just laughed. I just did a little business and made a small profit. In the future, Walter's company would be powerful enough to rival Alvin Leon and the entire Leon family. If in the past life I mistakenly married into the elite, in this life, I would become the elite myself. Time flew, and soon it was Joyce's birthday. She meticulously sent the party address to the class group, making sure to tag my name, as if afraid I'd miss her display. She clearly couldn't wait for me to see it with my own eyes. I wore my red leather jacket and studded boots, got on my newly bought large displacement motorcycle, and sped straight to the hotel hosting the birthday party. Coincidentally, as I arrived at the hotel entrance, I ran into Joyce and Alvin Leon, who were stepping out of their private car. I braked hard, positioning my bike right in front of them. Taking off my helmet, I casually ran my hand through my recently permed wavy hair and slightly parted my lips. "Joyce, long time no see." Since being reborn and leaving the dorm, Joyce hadn't bothered to return to school. For one man, she resolutely dropped out, as if staking her entire life on him. Joyce stared blankly, looking me up and down, full of surprise. In the previous life, I always dressed and behaved modestly, fitting Alvin Leon's preference for a simple girl. Since my rebirth, I had completely changed my style and realized that an unrestrained look truly suited me. I gave a faint smile, glanced at Alvin Leon, and deliberately asked with a sense of distance, "What, just a few months and you don't recognize me anymore? Is this your fiancé?" Alvin Leon politely offered his hand. "Hello, I'm Alvin Leon." For me, there was no more fitting word to describe him than a beast in human skin. Joyce bit her lip slightly, her eyes cautious, and said, "Alvin, please go in first. I need to talk to my best friend for a bit." After ushering Alvin Leon away, she frowned and said, "Don't think changing like this will attract Alvin. I was the one who saved him. Alvin promised to treat me well for the rest of his life." I crossed my arms, lightly shaking my head. "Joyce, a man's words are just wind. What makes you think a rich playboy will be faithful forever?" She lifted her head confidently. "Sara, do you think I'm stupid? After marriage, I'll bear him a few children. Even if he changes his heart, I'll still be Alvin's wife, and my children will be the Leon family heirs. Love or wealth, I'll at least secure one." I chuckled. Indeed, she had given me a new perspective. Unfortunately, all those beautiful prospects would soon shatter. I understood that Joyce's naivety was largely due to Alvin Leon's perfect facade, just as I had been deceived in the past. That day, driven by compassion, I risked my life to pull Alvin Leon, the sole heir of the Leon family, out of the overturned car. From that moment, he pursued me relentlessly. He called me the destiny of his life, saying every smile and every frown of mine fascinated him. How could an ordinary student like me, who hadn't been battered by society, resist such an assault? Alvin Leon didn't just use money to entice me. He meticulously remembered my smallest preferences, constantly finding ways to make me happy. In just 2 short months, I was completely smitten, thinking he was my true love, the perfect piece God had reserved for me. But right after the wedding, I witnessed him passionately kissing a woman in a corner of the hallway. That woman was his mother's biological sister, Alvin Leon's maternal aunt. My world instantly crumbled. I generally disliked arguments, but that day, I nearly lost control. I gritted my teeth and demanded a divorce. Alvin Leon immediately tightened his grip around my neck. his face showing a chilling ferocity I had never seen, and said, "Do you think the Leon family is a place you can just come and go as you please?" While lost in my memories, I heard Joyce ask, "Where did you get the money to invest?" "Sara, don't do anything shady just to compete with me." I slightly raised my eyebrow. "Aren't you about to marry into high society? Why would I compete with you?" Joyce retorted, "Who knows? You had the ability to charm Alvin before. It must be easy for you to charm others now, right?" Looking at her provocative gaze, I just sighed. "Joyce, I'm not like you." She immediately flared up. "What do you mean by that?" I didn't bother to explain further, simply stood up and left. Today, I had an appointment with my lawyer to discuss my father's affair while my mother was alive. Joyce and I are the same age, which means my father had been cheating on my mother for at least 20 years. Yet, he and Aunt Julie were now brazenly living in the house that my mother left. The more I thought about it, the more disgusting I felt. I had to find a way to make them move out. In the office, Lawyer Otis handed me the collected documents, pointing to a copy and saying, "Miss Sara, did you know that before your mother passed away, your father bought a very large insurance policy for her?" I shook my head. When my mother died, I was in the 12th grade, burying myself in exam preparation, rarely coming home. I had never heard about any insurance. Lawyer Otis adjusted his glasses, his voice dropping. "I suspect your mother's car accident might not have been simple." Stepping out of the office, despite the sunshine, my whole body felt icy cold. I remembered that just 2 months after my mother passed away, my father bought the car he had long coveted. Coincidentally, Aunt Julie's family also suddenly became well off. Joyce was dressed in all new clothes, spending money lavishly, no longer frugal like before. At the time, I only found it odd, but didn't think much of it. But now, every fragmented memory slowly pieced together, giving me a chilling realization. Did I really endure 10 years of hell for the sake of these people in the last life? Ding! A sudden car horn interrupted my thoughts. Thinking I was blocking the way, I backed up a few steps. But the car stopped right in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing the familiar fake face. A man's voice said, "Sara, it really is you." I stood frozen, countless bad thoughts flashing through my mind. Why was Alvin Leon here? What scheme was he planning now? Even after living a whole life, I couldn't drop my guard around Alvin Leon. He smiled, maintaining that hypocritical, gentlemanly demeanor. "We met last night at Joyce's birthday party. You haven't forgotten, have you?" I took a breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Do you need something?" Alvin Leon smirked. "I'm very interested in you. I'd like to chat for a bit. Will you give me a chance?" I said resolutely, "Sorry, I'm busy and don't have time." I turned to leave, but his voice called out, "Sara, why do I feel like you're afraid of me?" My steps paused. Right then, the phone in my hand vibrated. It was my father calling, asking, "Did you sell the house your mother left you?" Hearing my father yell through the phone, I glanced at Alvin Leon in the car and calmly replied, "So what? Is there a problem?" My father continued to shout, "You ungrateful child! That was a gift from your mother before she died. How dare you sell it? Joyce said you invested in some web drama. You must have made a profit now. Transfer all the money to me immediately. I'll hold it for you, so you don't waste it." The sound of his abacus clicking on the other end made me let out a bitter laugh. The house, my mother left behind, was originally just an investment. She once told me to sell it whenever I needed money, and not to regret it. In the past life, even in hardship, I didn't dare touch it. Who knew that a few years later, an earthquake would hit the area? Although there were no casualties, the ground cracked open, and it was listed as a danger zone. At that point, let alone selling, no one even dared to live there. In this life, I had sold the house early, reinvesting the capital into more lucrative ventures. Thinking of this, I replied, "Dad, I'm not being wasteful. Mom came to me in a dream and told me to sell the house quickly or it would lose value later. In the dream, she also told me to invest in the web drama. You see, the show is a huge hit now. Thanks to that, I earned a lot of money." My father roared angrily. Sara, what nonsense are you talking about? Your mother loved you so much when she was alive. Now you're wasting money and using her as an excuse? Do you have any conscience left? I burst out laughing. Didn't Mom treat you well when she was alive? She only passed away a few years ago, and you're already embracing her best friend. With your character, what right do you have to lecture me and demand my money? Dreaming can hold anything. After saying this, I abruptly hung up and immediately blocked his number. Right after, I calmly texted lawyer Otis. No matter the cost, I need to find out the truth about my mother's death. If my father is truly responsible, I will never forgive him. Alvin Leon's voice rang out again. It seems your relationship with your family isn't very good. I typed the message while indifferently replying. That's right, like oil and water. So if you have something to say, Mr. Alvin, please say it quickly. I'm busy cutting ties. He gave a small laugh. You don't seem like the type of girl to be so heartless. I curled my lip, not bothering to reply. I walked up to a restaurant. Just as I was sitting down, Alvin Leon also walked in, casually sat down and said, "Let's talk over lunch." We hadn't been sitting long when Joyce rushed in. Of course, this was because I intentionally sent her my location, allowing her to arrive so quickly. Without needing me to explain, Joyce immediately guessed I was with Alvin Leon. She pretended to be surprised, then glanced at me, deliberately smiling brightly. "Alvin, why are you here? Oh, Sara is here too. What a coincidence." I raised an eyebrow, cooperating. Yes, truly a coincidence. Alvin Leon's eyes paused between Joyce and me, then quickly wrapped his arm around her waist and replied, "Sara and I coincidentally ran into each other on the street, so we stopped to have lunch together. Honey, you're not angry, are you?" Joyce nestled into Alvin Leon's arms, feigning shyness, and showed her understanding. "Sara is my best friend. How could I be jealous? Besides, I trust you forever." With her presence, Alvin Leon found it inconvenient to talk to me further. After eating, I stood up and left. Not long after I left, my phone vibrated continuously. They were all messages from Joyce. "Why were you eating with Alvin? He's mine. Don't you dare try to steal him. We're about to get engaged. You don't want to be called a mistress, do you? Don't let me see you with Alvin again, or don't blame me for turning on you." Looking at those lines, I just found it amusing. She was clearly frightened to death, constantly worried I would steal her treasure. Not long after, Joyce and Alvin Leon really held their engagement party. She specifically sent me an invitation card. I looked at the card in my hand, my eyes filled with the final anticipation. The play was about to begin. At the party, I saw my father and Aunt Julie. One played the good cop, the other the bad cop, putting on a nauseating show. Initially, I kept a cold demeanor, then acted as if I were persuaded, feigning hesitation before delivering the decisive blow. Joyce, in a luxurious gown, walked up to me, leaning in to whisper just loud enough for me to hear. "Sorry, Sara, it's my turn to enjoy this rich life now." I deliberately asked, "Have you two registered your marriage yet?" Before I could finish, she immediately pulled out 2 red papers from her purse, her marriage certificates with Alvin Leon. In that fleeting moment, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief and smiled slightly. "Don't worry, I won't fight you for this rotten wealth." Under Joyce's puzzled gaze, I calmly left the venue and called lawyer Otis. It's time for the grudges from my mother's generation to ours to end. The next time we met, I ran into Joyce at a business party. She was wearing a stunning outfit, but the arrogant light in her eyes was gone. She must have long seen through Alvin Leon's true face. As for me, thanks to the experience from my past life, I had invested in many potential projects, gradually becoming a leading force in the investment world. Every project I paid attention to was quickly flooded with capital, creating a sensation. I knew this spotlight couldn't last forever, so after graduation, I proactively joined Walter's company, starting from the lowest position. The more skills, the better. Learning is never superfluous. Walter, just like in the previous life, never mistreated any investor. Especially for me, his biggest shareholder, he was extremely dedicated, almost pouring all his life's experience into guiding me. Thanks to this, facing the seasoned businessmen at parties, I could now handle myself with ease. Alvin Leon approached me, holding Joyce's hand, maintaining his false, dignified appearance. CEO Sara, we meet again. What do you think of the project I mentioned last time, CEO Sara? I immediately recognized it as the project that had caused Alvin Leon a heavy loss in the previous life. It was this shock that made him depressed for a long time, not even having the mental energy to fool around with his aunt or other women. At the time, I was worried he would take his anger out on me, so I was cautious and restrained every day. Now I merely swirled the wine glass in my hand, a meaningful curve on my lips. I offered a slight, ambiguous smile and replied, "A project that CEO Alvin has his eye on certainly can't be wrong." As soon as the words left my mouth, Joyce's typically arrogant face suddenly changed color. Her eyes flashed with panic, and she softly called out, "Sara?" I tilted my head and asked, "What's wrong, Joyce?" She subconsciously reached out, clearly begging for help. But before her hand could reach mine, Alvin Leon grabbed it tightly. He kept his gentle facade and said, "Honey, let's go over there. Don't bother CEO Sara." He pulled Joyce away, but she turned back to look at me 3 times. Her eyes were full of anxiety. As the party ended, I went to the garden for fresh air. Unexpectedly, Joyce ran up to me, her eyes red, gripping my shoulders with both hands. "Sara, you knew all along, didn't you?" I gently removed her hands and calmly replied, "How are you enjoying the rich life you've always yearned for?" She trembled, then suddenly screamed, "You bitch! You clearly knew Alvin Leon's true face, but you watched me walk into it step by step. You did it on purpose. You wanted to harm me." I gave a faint smile. "You were the one who locked me in the restroom that day and rushed off to find Alvin Leon. Later, you were the one who took care of him daily, just to marry into the elite. I warned you, but what did you say? You said you'd bear him a few children, and even without love, you'd have wealth and luxury. So, how long has it been and you still haven't given birth? Or have you changed your mind?" Joyce's whole body was shaking. I thought she would go berserk and hit me, but surprisingly, she fell to her knees in front of me. "Sara, it's all my fault. Please save me. If I stay in the Leon family any longer, I'll go crazy. Alvin Leon is violent. He frequently hits me. I can't take it anymore. Sara, for the sake of our years of friendship, please save me." Watching her cry so miserably, my heart remained unmoved. I bent down, helped her stand up, and gently said, "Don't worry, I will help you." Her eyes immediately lit up like a drowning person grabbing a straw. But soon, she would understand that a straw can't save a life. It only pulls a person deeper into despair. Sure enough, Joyce constantly called, urging me to help. I, however, was busy arranging evidence with lawyer Otis. Eventually, my father and Aunt Julie were arrested. At first, they denied it, insisting my mother's death was an accident. But when all the evidence of murder was presented, they immediately collapsed. Not only did they face murder charges, but they also had to stand trial for insurance fraud. The enormous compensation money from the insurance years ago was nearly all spent. Desperate, they turned to Joyce for help, because in their eyes, their daughter was now a Leon family madam, not lacking money. But before Joyce could recover from the shock of her parents' arrest, the Leon family quickly used their influence to rush the divorce procedures at lightning speed. The entire process didn't require Alvin Leon to show up, nor did they bother to ask for Joyce's opinion. Holding the divorce paper, she dejectedly sought me out at my company, but I had already boarded a plane. I knew with Joyce's stubborn personality, she would surely come to beg me, maybe even demand I save her parents. To avoid trouble, I had planned a trip in advance. 2 months later, the company in Vietnam sent news that the project Alvin Leon had invested in was embroiled in a serious scandal. Not only did he lose a colossal sum, but he was also hit with lawsuits. The Leon family had to pour money into saving him, bleeding out capital. For the next few years, it was unlikely they would have the energy to cause trouble. I stood before the vast ocean, watching the waves crash ashore. I picked up my surfboard and jumped into the water. Today, the weather is beautiful, and the wind and waves are calm. I smiled softly and whispered, "Let's go. Time to surf."